I got rich from sports betting when I learned these 5 habits that I'm going to teach you in this video today. Let's go ahead and start out with number 5. Number 5 is going to be expectations. So when I first started out, my expectations were just probably like everybody else's expectations. All right, so like, let's say for example, $1,000 as your bankroll. I thought, well, I should be able to turn that into, $20,000 in a couple months, right? Because I'm taking $1,000 and I'm thinking I'm going to be able to make a bunch of money just off of $1,000. But it took me a while to realize that expectations in sports betting are way out of whack what people think. The reason why is because most people are betting parlays. So they're thinking if they put $100, out of their $100 or their $1,000 bankroll on a parlay that's going to pay out $5,000 and they win, yeah, like now they turn their $1,000 bankroll, now they got, $6,000 now. But they didn't realize that this is never going to happen. Okay, and that's one thing that it took me a while to realize as well, is betting parlays and making that as part of your expectations of being able to grow the money that you have is not realistic, because betting parlays is so low on the spectrum of percentage-wise of you winning that you're never going to be able to win a big enough parlay that's going to set you up. Because you see it all the time, and I know because I've seen it all the time way back when on social media. People betting a quarter on 25 legs and they win for $250,000 or whatnot. Most of those, I believe, are actually fake, and those are just put out there as propaganda to make people go and bet that type of bet, because it makes them think, it's the Powerball lottery syndrome, where they see somebody win, they think they can do it. So it makes them go and do it. But the expectations to think you're going to do that is wrong. Now, what you have to realize with your expectation level is what your starting bankroll is. You should only aim to be able to get anywhere from, in the stock market, people just aim to get 10 to 20% on a year. And if they do, that's crazy good. In sports betting, if you have the right strategy, you could get a little bit more. So I like to be in that range of at least 50%. If you can get a 50% ROI within a year, then that's great. So what does that mean? That means if you're starting out with $20,000, your expectation level should be within the whole entire year is making half of that. So at the end of the year, your bankroll now is $30,000. That's what your expectation should be here, okay? Depending on the right strategies that you have, you could obviously make more money than that. But lower tier expectation level, that's what it should be. Not, I'm trying to take $1,000 and turn it into $20,000, because that's not going to happen. And all you're going to do is this right here, you're going to lose. Guaranteed, all the time. You're going to lose the money that you start out with when your expectation level is way too high, because then you're not going to feel satisfied enough. Now, the person that turned 20,000 into 30, obviously, they're a next caliber person. Why? Because they've had $20,000 to begin with, so they understand how to save money. And they understand that if I get 50% on this and I make a profit of $10,000 within the year, then that's great. So your expectation level needs to be on point, because if that's not lined up, then you're not going to be able to understand how to make serious money doing this, because you're never going to make any money by thinking your expectation level is way out in left field and thinking that I should, 100x my money, 200x my money within 1 month. Now let's go ahead and get to number 4. Number 4 was defining what rich means to you, okay? It means something different to a lot of people. So when you say somebody's rich, some people think, oh, it means they got the Lambos, they got yachts, they got mansions, that's rich and everything like that. Some people, rich is just freedom, where they don't have to clock into a job every single day. They have the freedom to wake up and do whatever it is that they want to do on a daily basis. That's rich to some people. Now, to me, that's where my definition of rich would come from, because I worked a 9-to-5 job just like everybody else, and I wanted to get out of that race. That rat race, I did not like it. Never liked it from the beginning. And I wanted to get out of that, because constantly doing stuff that you don't want to do, waking up every day doing stuff you don't want to do, that is frustrating. And I know a lot of people can feel the same pain, because you wake up every day, you go do something you don't want to do, and then you get paid, you blow it all on the weekend, and it's just a rotation that you keep doing over and over. So defining what rich meant to you is a huge part of this deal, because if you're looking to get rich equaling hundreds of millions of dollars, okay, that's not going to come from sports betting. It's not. You can't make hundreds of millions of dollars from sports betting. Just being realistic, you can't, because the sports books will eventually get to a point where you run out of accounts, you run out of sports books. Like, you just can't make $100 million in sports betting. But the freedom you can get from sports betting, okay? Realizing that you can actually gain freedom from sports betting, where you wake up every day and your job is just sports betting. Now, how do you calculate that? You have to calculate that to what your expenses are each and every month. All right, so let's say your expenses, right here, we're going to say expenses, is, let's say, $5,000 a month. If your expenses are $5,000 a month, this is going back to realistic expectations again, because you have to realize how much money you have to have as a bankroll to be able to make your nut each and every month, which is either $5,000 or $10,000 a month, depending on how much your bills are. So at $5,000 a month, what you need is, you legitimately need to be betting a unit size of $500. Because if you could rack off 10 units, let's say, per month, you're reaching your nut of 5,000. But that is very on the edge, because like you really have to hit those 10 units every month to reach what your bills exactly are. You ideally don't want to just make exactly what your bills are. You want to make more than that. Okay, so your bankroll, your unit size has to correlate here to equal your freedom. All right, because this is the goal, right? That's the goal. Everybody wants the freedom. They want to wake up every day. They want to feel that freedom of, I can do whatever I want today, and that's it. I don't have to report anywhere. I just have to go and do my best for sports betting, because that's what I chose to do, not somebody else telling me what to do, right? So again, if you want to make $5,000 a month, your unit size needs to be $500. But what does your bankroll need to be? Bankroll needs to be $25,000. All right, for this to make sense, because the ups and downs of sports betting, to create yourself freedom to where you could do this full time, you legitimately have to have a big enough bankroll to go through the ups and downs, because you should only be betting 1% to 2% of your bankroll if you're trying to do this full time. Because the ups and downs, they're gonna happen. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter what type of strategy you have. To be honest with you, I got one of the best strategies that are out there, and I still reach those ups and downs where, you know, sometimes you'll go on a losing streak. It happens. But you have to make realistic expectations. Again, to make freedom, you have to have a $25,000 bankroll. Your unit size needs to be $500. And for example, if you have a monthly nut of 5,000, this is obtainable right here. Okay? This is completely obtainable. 100% that you could reach this. So that's what you have to realize when it comes to sports betting, is the habit of thinking I'm going to get rich, as in $100 million rich, is not going to happen. But the rich as in freedom to being able to do whatever I want, that is 100% obtainable and 100% possible, as long as you have the right numbers matching. Got to have the right bankroll, the right unit size, you got to have everything matching up, and your expenses need to be a certain amount, right? And then, on top of this, obviously, to make this work, because sportsbooks will ban you when you are making consistent money, you have to have X number of sportsbooks. What does that mean? That means you need as many sportsbooks as you have access to, and multiple accounts. You have to. That's the way that it goes, because you're going to burn through accounts if you only have one account that you're trying to do this with. They will ban you, they will limit you, okay? You have to have multiple accounts. But that is how you do this successfully at a next level, okay? You have to, because sportsbooks will ban you and they will limit you. So make sure that your definition of getting rich is not making $100 million in sports betting, but gaining the freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do, because it's 100% possible as long as your numbers line up. All right, let's jump into number 3. Number 3 now we're getting into the real serious part of, yeah, you got the expectation level down, you got what it is that your goal is, you know, you want to create freedom, but now what about the strategy-wise? Strategy, what am I supposed to do? So a lot of people's strategy in sports betting when they first started, because I did the same thing, what we were trying to do was win 54 to 55% of the time betting minus 110 plays. All right, this is what people consider to be a professional sports bettor. I hate to tell you, you've been lied to, because that's not a professional sports bettor. And I have yet to come across, in my 10 plus years of doing this, somebody that actually was legit year after year being able to do these type of numbers. Have not came across one whatsoever. Literally impossible. I haven't seen one person that has a tracked on record that shows you exactly them being able to win at minus 110s at that percentage. So it doesn't work. All right? Might be controversial, but guess what? It doesn't work. And if you're trying to do it that way, you're going to fail. It's going to happen. Because I did it for years trying to accomplish this. And there was no way to figure it out. It just wasn't. Because what I'm about to tell you right now is implied probability versus true probability. Okay? You have to find the difference between the two. Implied probability is what the sports books percent is. All right? That's what they think when they give you a certain odd. So minus 200, for example, they're giving you a percent on that it's going to hit, just strictly off of that. Okay? True probability is the event occurring. Okay? The true probability is what's the percentage that's actually going to happen compared to what the sportsbook thinks is going to happen. There's two different things there. People think that when you look at a number like this, Okay, well, if it has a 60+% chance of winning, if I just play those all the time, I'm going to win 60%. But no, that's what you need to break even. So you have to find the discrepancies, okay? The discrepancies between an implied probability number and a true probability number. So, for example, implied probability being minus 200. But let's say the true probability for that certain play, this is going to be player props, all right? Majority of this is going to be player props. The true probability of that event actually occurring should be minus 300 now you have found an edge because the sportsbook has listed this at minus 200, but the realistic expectation of that number and that event occurring is actually minus 300. It should be, but the sportsbooks did not make it that number. And people think that the sportsbooks don't mess up. They do, and I've caught them day after day, month after month, year after year. There are plays within your sportsbook system that have these plays, okay? There is, regardless, no matter what day of the week it is. I have found there's at least 3 to every single day, no matter what sport is going. Now, if you guys want to fast forward through all this stuff and you want me to just to show you exactly how to do it and to give you the blueprint, all you got to do is click the link in the description. Now, let's talk more about exactly how you're going to do this and how you're going to be successful, because you can apply this to every single sport. Okay? There's no sport that you can't apply this to. You can apply this to every sport. But like I said, what you want to focus on more is going to be the player props. Okay? Player props, a lot of people in the industry think the player props are not good to bet on. They are the best thing to bet on. It's contrary. The reason why is because you're relying on that single player to be able to do something or to not do something. So you're not relying on a whole team to cover a spread, 2 teams to reach a total, 2 teams' defenses to play good so it goes under. You're not worried about that. You're worried about one player either doing something or not doing something. And that's it. Okay? That's why player props are way better to focus on. And that is what you need to imply into your strategy to actually be successful. And like I said, through steps 4 and 5, get that expectation level to reach that goal of freedom. You got to have the right strategy. The right strategy is implied probability plus true probability equals a discrepancy. You're looking for the discrepancies here. Now I'll show you how to get that true probability in step 2. All right, let's go to number 2 now. Like I just said, true probability strategy. How do we do it? All right, it's different per sport, obviously, because there's certain things that you need to look at. But we'll use the NFL, for example. All right, let's use the NFL, for example. And let's go ahead and let's use a running back. We're going to use a running back. All right, we're going to say Derrick Henry. We're going to say Henry's rushing total for minus 110 is, let's say, 99.5. Okay, now what do we do there? Now, what you would want to do is you want to go and see exactly how many times did Derrick Henry reach over this number. If we're looking at the over, obviously. How many times did he reach that number? Did he go over it? When you go and research that number, now you're going to get a certain number of times that it happened. Now, at this line, I'm just going to tell you. just telling you because of this is how it works. All right? Most of the time, let's use 10 games as an example. Let's say that they played 10 games. Most of the time, you're going to see that this number right here, he was able to reach that number most likely out of 10 times, probably 5 out of the 10. He was able to go over and the under. So it's 50% both ways, you see? That is why when you see that at a minus 110 line, you're losing because your implied probability here has to be 52% at least to break even, which it's not. Guess what happens there? You bet this over and over, you're negative 2%, all right? So negative 2%, you're going to constantly just keep losing. It's just the way it's going to keep going. And then next thing you know, you're in a hole. That's why this minus 110 stuff doesn't work. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Henry's alternate number. All right, let's say his alternate number is 70 plus. All right, we're going to say 70 plus, and that's going to be at minus 200. All right, so 70 plus at minus 200. Now let's take a look at what is his implied probability there. It'll be about 60%. But now if we went and looked at exactly how many times did Henry go over 70 plus? Let's say we're looking at the over. How many times did he go over 70 plus? Let's say out of 10 times, he went over that number 8 out of 10 times. What is that giving us? An 80% mark now of a true probability of that event occurring. To do this a successful way, you can't just do the overall, okay? To be successful with this, you have to be able to make it make sense. Remember that. It's common sense. Make it make sense. Because you have to make sure that Derrick Henry, if you're betting the over here, is going against a team that doesn't do well against opposing rushers, okay? If they're one of the best rushing defenses in the league, obviously you don't want to be on that regardless of his overall number. So the best way to do that is to compare the team that he's going against, similar defenses. If you take the similar defenses and adapt that to the team that he's playing on that very day, and then come up with your number, that's even more in depth than just the base layer of seeing how many times he reached that number and how many times he didn't. Now it's giving you an actual common sense number because now he's going against a similar defense that he was able to go, let's say, 8 out of 10 times. And now you have a 20% edge here. All right, you have a 20% edge, let's say, for Derrick Henry to go over 70 plus against a similar defense. As in, up here, we have no value. We had no value on this minus 110 number. Okay, here we had tremendous value at the minus 200 level. And I did make a little mishap here because I was just going off the top of the head, but minus 200 is actually 66%, all right? So 66% implied probability. We actually got a 14% edge here, okay? Still, again, we have a 14% edge that this event is actually going to happen. So if you bet this over the long term and you win 8 out of 10 times at a minus 200, you will profit long term. Up here, doing it minus 110 over the long term, 5 out of 10, and you're at a minus 110 level, that's 50%. You're hitting 50% long term, but you need to hit 52 to break even. So what are you doing? You're losing money over the long term. That's losing money, okay? So once I learned how to adapt this strategy to everything that I'm doing, this is where the success became, because I literally just had to adapt this strategy to everything that I was doing. And from there, it was all just doing the same process over and over every day. And then that is how you stack your money. That's how you make money. That's how you do this as a full-time job. Because then you're able to actually pull money because you're expecting to win. Okay? Because, again, you have an 80% chance of something happening. You're expecting to win 80% of the time. This isn't expecting to win. This is gambling. Okay? Up here is gambling. That's gambling. Minus 110 is trying to do this, trying to beat that number of 50% and get over 52%. That's gambling. This isn't gambling. This is expecting to win. Okay? This is a cheat code to being able to win in sports betting. Now let's get to the number 1 habit that's going to keep you from working a regular job and give you the freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do. The number 1 thing is going to be being consistent, because this doesn't work if you're not doing this seriously, you're not taking it serious. Okay, because the way that I teach sports betting with the true probability method, the TP, all right, the TP method, the margin for error is very, very thin, because when you win a play, you're either gaining anywhere from 0.3 of a unit to maybe 0.5 a unit, okay? And we're hoping on this, stacking 70, 80% of the time, and that's what creates our money, okay? We take the little gains and we stack them up over time, and we obviously win more than we lose, so what happens there is we still have a nice little margin there for profit. Now, what happens with not being consistent is, let's say you miss out on a couple days where you could have gained this. So let's say you miss out on 3 days at 0.5 units. So you missed out on 1.5 units, let's say. Okay? Let's say the next day, after your 3 days, you decide to play. That 4th day, you lose a play. Now you've lost 1.2, or 1 unit, excuse me. You've lost 1 unit there. Now what does that mean? Now what did you just do to yourself right there? This could screw up your whole entire month. This is what I'm trying to show you. One little mistake here could screw up your entire month. Now, instead of over those 3 days, you making 1.5, over those 3 days, you making 1.5 units, you didn't make anything, okay? Then what happened is the 4th day, you came and you lost a unit. So now, over those 4 days, you're down 1 unit, while if you did it the correct way, that 4th day, you'd actually be up half a unit. What does that do? That sets you back right there. People don't realize that, but that sets you back an entire week almost of being able to recoup. That's why the margin for error is so thin when you're betting like this, that you have to stay consistent with what you're doing. Because if you're not consistent with what you're doing, and you miss out on a couple days that could have been winning days, next thing you know, what's going to happen there? You've put yourself way behind, okay? You put yourself way behind, and not including if you fall off the wagon and you bet some random stuff. Let's say you make 2 ill-advised bets that lose, and you lose 2 units there. Now look, you've destroyed your whole entire month now because you've made just a couple mistakes. The margin for error is super thin when you're doing this method. You're doing this method very, very thin, okay? You cannot make mistakes, and you cannot skip out on days where there is value, where you should be playing certain plays. Now, you'll see on my tracker when you look at my stuff that, yes, there's days that I don't play, but that's because there are no high-value plays that I end up doing. Not that I just don't feel like doing it, but there's no high-value plays. If there's none on that day, then yes, you can skip that day. But on a day where there is high-value plays and you miss out on that, that is where it will cost you, literally, could screw up your whole entire month, just a couple days of being inconsistent or making the wrong decisions. So make sure you're consistent and you stick to what you're doing. The strategy that works, which is the strategy that I'm teaching you, that's what works, not anything else, okay? If you try anything else, but you're trying to do this at the same time, it's not going to gel. And next thing you know, you're going to be behind, and then you're going to think that it doesn't work. So being consistent is the number one habit that you need to learn in sports betting to translate expectations into freedom, into the right strategy, into doing this full time and having the freedom to do whatever it is you want to do.